Okay.
Ready to open?
Go for it.
Lee, are you in some office somewhere?
I am. It's crazy.
Crazy. Where are you?
I'm in my office in Boston.
Yeah,
Literally the only person here.
I can see that big skyscraper in the background.
Yeah.
Well, I saw your car next door.
I hope not.
All right, I gotta pull up my agenda, unless you want to just put do you want to put the agenda on the screen like we did last time?
Sure. Let's see if I can do that. How about that? Is that good? Can you see that?
Great.
Yeah.
Yep.
Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, let me get it so that I'm gonna put you somewhere so that it doesn't look off to the side when I'm talking to you. There you go.
All right. How do we scroll it? Or do you scroll it?
I do. I'm in control.
Okay. You're in control.
I am in control. This is my favorite spot, in control. There we go. That's the whole agenda right there.
All right. Well, why don't we start with number 1? Jim?
Here are the.
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm known for not setting my audio up very well. Anyway, not much has happened since we had our last meeting, which I think was what, maybe 20 days ago or so. Basically, there was very little activity, and the amount of cash that's available at this moment, or at least it was this morning around 10 o'clock, $146,205, which is not much different than what we had at our meeting as I said, 20 some days ago. So there's not much else to say as far as what went on. If you may recall at the last meeting, though, there was a couple of things that were really quite wonderful. One of which was a donation of $20,000. We talked about that before, but it's there. And then in July, we spent $5,215, of which $5,000 was for grants. And then there was the usual accounting and bank charge fees that were $2,015. Between then and now, I think we spent maybe $15 for the bank. So that's about the extent of what I could see of any particular interest at this moment.
So I would add too, I think that's a good picture. And right here on the screen is everything that's happened in July that Jim recapped. Is of the $146,000, 50 of that is committed to the Habitat Project for the sewer. Remember that was put aside, and that hasn't been spent yet. And then there might be $5,000 of outstanding grant, but that's really be about it. So of the 146, 55, I think might be committed. So leaving available just under 100.
Sounds good. Anything else, Jim?
That's it.
Perfect.
There's Jim's report there. So it's hard.
We need a motion to accept the report.
You know, that's.
I don't think we vote on it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They don't vote on that. So, some trusts and affordable housing groups ratify the transactions as presented. That was some lawyer came up with that word. Like, I don't know, it seems like a good word to me, but it wasn't to approve because it was kind of after the fact, but maybe it's another word for accept. You know, and I always thought that would be something where the CHCC is a little bit more than just presented the information, but take some action, but that's never really been that important or taken up as a recommendation. Okay, so what this all is, I think there's most of the items here is really partly to do with town meeting, just to refresh the housing related articles. And I think then to talk about, because now I can't really go back what the actual agenda says. Oh, well, it does talk about the upcoming meetings. You want to do that first? Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
May I ask a question, Liz? Is there something
Yes.
you want me to do beyond what I'm doing as far as the finance is concerned? Some additional, I don't know.
Not from me.
So Jim, I don't know, I think it's something that you can, Lee can think about, or the group can think about if they want something particular. Liz is our administrator, and so if there's something that's important to her, she would ask you. If there's something important to us, we would ask. I'm not sure what other information there would be. Is there anything, Lee, you can think of?
No.
Mhm. I try and we have some comparisons of what was spent now and in the past, et cetera, things of that nature, which I don't really talk about when we have a meeting like this, but you can read it. But if there's something that someone feels should be placed in addition to what is there, then I probably can do it. And I'll do it. All I need to know is, this is what I'd like to say.
Perfect.
Anyway, thank you.
All right,
Thank
so
you.
upcoming meetings. TIF hearing is on the 17th. Is that what, Liz, you sent today as far as that email about the select board taking up items in a certain time?
So this is, this was maybe an abbreviated way of saying this, but there's a public hearing on, I think, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, I believe, for most of, if not all of the town meeting articles, really most of them, not all of them, where, one night would be the planning board, and I think Monday night are the select board articles. Tuesday is probably the school committee. I think that's probably how it goes. So one of the articles that would be taken up in this public hearing, which is a joint public hearing with the Finance Committee and the Select Board, is the Article 16, which is the Grantham Junction Village Tax Incremental Finance article. So that's what all that means, the TIF hearing. And so directly after each of these hearings on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday night, the Select Board has noticed their own meeting to vote their positions on the articles that they just heard at the public hearing. So directly after the public hearing here with the Finance Committee, which I believe starts at 7 p.m. And what I could do is send out the Zoom meeting to everybody just so that you have that. And directly after that at 9 p.m., the Select Board will deliberate and take a position on this particular article. So it'll be interesting to see, how they all vote on it. I don't know. I mean, things have changed since the last time they talked about it back in February. Yeah, so I don't know if you want to get into that particularly right now, but that's what that meeting is. And then after that, so then town meeting is on the 13th. So what you decided last meeting was to meet just before town meeting, just to regroup for town meeting, right? So.
Can I say, I can't remember exactly if we specified that we'd meet, at the fields or the high school or something, but did we?
No, you mean like at town meeting, like regroup right before, like?
I just can't remember any specificity on that point, but.
No, there was no discussion on that I recall.
Okay, I'd suggest maybe we meet by Zoom, kind of whatever works for everybody as close to the town meeting date as we can.
Does everyone think that they're going to be there in person?
I don't think I will be.
I'm not sure.
I will be there.
I should go. I'll go unless something happens.
Yeah, I think you should go and bring all your family. I think I think the votes are really, like in the end, it all comes down to the voting, right? Like that's how it all goes, right?
I agree.
So I guess, Lee, I'm just pausing because I like to go a little bit early so I can get like a seat that I'm, feel like I can see everything, and I'm like, I don't want to be like in the wrong spot, and I don't really know how it's going to go there in the field. So my inclination would be to go early on site, Zoom like from the field or something. I don't know.
It's scheduled for a Sunday, right?
Sunday at 1.
Yeah. What do you think about a Zoom some point on Friday? I'm just where I'm going with this is I'm hesitant to ask the group to convene in person.
Yeah.
Just from a social distance perspective.
Yep. Well, why don't you think about that? We'd have to post, right? So, and then the 10th is Thursday. Just plug in, I'm like 2% charge here. Whatever you want to do.
Why don't we table it? Let's see what happens over the next few days
Okay.
with the imminent hearings. And
But certainly we could, I'm sure, arrange for like, it'd be a quick like half-hour thing too, probably. It would be pretty narrow focused.
You want to see what happens after the Monday night meeting in case there's something extremely urgent that happens there?
But I think between that and maybe wait and see what the select board's position is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, let me just make sure. Did anyone else come in here that I missed? Right. It's hard to share screen and do all this Zoom hosting business. All right. And
Liz,
then you.
where it says initiative update, Junction Village, TIF.
Yep.
Are we going to discuss the, we're going to spend some time discussing that in the logistics of the Monday night meeting? Or was this is this where it says upcoming meetings, we were going to discuss that now?
Doesn't matter. It's really coming next because the only other thing was just the chair breakfast next week, and Lee said he would go to that. So there we go.
Okay, perfect.
Ready for the initiative updates.
Logistically speaking, are we going to be able to speak to our TIF item? Are they going to ask for us to speak in specifically, or do we just, as CHDC, have to get in the queue to say we want to give our opinion on it? Do you know how that meeting is going to work?
Well, Mike Lawson is going to present. So he has a presentation that covers the whole, a little bit of background, a little bit of, recent events and the award from the state and the TIF and why it's important at 15 years and not a lesser number. So he has, I don't know, maybe 15 slides or something like that.
Yep.
I don't know whether, you could ask, would you like to have him call on you after his presentation to make some introductory remarks before like the public? Is that what you're saying? It's their public hearing, so I don't know that you can be part of their board logistically, but.
Lee, I think kind of in some discussions, do you feel like we should say something that evening?
I do think it's important for CHDC to at least make a statement. I think we should reach out to Mike, and I'm happy to do that tomorrow, unless Liz, you think it's better coming from you, just to ask him what he has in mind, and does he object to that, and just ask him logistically how that might work from his perspective.
And can you ask him if we could get a copy of his presentation so that we can be familiar with it prior to town meeting? So maybe for our September meeting, we can review it.
Yeah, he'll actually have the presentation, I think, on Monday. And I would imagine his town meeting presentation would be very much the same. So I know he's working on it. I was reluctant to get a copy to put in the packet here because I think it's still really in flux and he's updating different pages as he goes. And I know Lee's given him some updates, and he's talked to one person and another person and whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that if I were just John Q, Concord citizen, what I'd want to know is that really this is boring and it's the same thing that you know, we've agreed to in the past, and that it's just being jiggered because of the requirements of the town. You know, and that same amount of money, not really much is changing hands and much is different. It's
I think it's a
and
little-
we got the state funds, so.
Yeah, I mean, the state funds is huge. The state funds were awarded at a higher level than their standard for assisted living and their general standard. So they're very much supportive of this project. They recognize that that Concord's put in a lot of money. So in fact, there is a project in Acton looking for state low-income housing tax credit, a senior project where the town didn't provide as much money and they did not get funded. And DHCD said, you should go talk to Concord. Support that really, gives us. Also, Walter has a track record with DHCD, so he's worked with them, on a number of projects, and that's very important to them. These are complex programs, and the compliance requirements are complicated, and the bidding and the architects and the construction and all of that's highly regulated, and you don't want to go into that and fund someone who's never done it before. And then the other part that they recognize that the site's a little difficult, and with the construction costs increasing, that he could really benefit from additional funding. So that was kind of their thinking. So that's a strong positive. I guess the other part, and I'm sure this is what really will come up, is that even though this is the same tax amount, and when we use the term tax amount, we're generally talking about the amount coming to the town between the lease payment to the CHDC, the tax on the land, and the tax on the building, the improvements on the land, right? Like there are those three pieces under that, but when we call it the tax amount, and it was always $75,000, like from the beginning of the project. I went back and looked, Dory had asked this. I can't find a budget where it was any number that wasn't $75,000. So like as long as I have, project records. But it was
How far does that go back?
So I went back to, did I go back to 11, maybe? Something like that, 12, 13, probably 2013. I'm gonna say that's how far. But I can get that more specifically. But it was never really focused on and discussed. So it was mentioned in a number of, town documents, right? Like it was mentioned in this development agreement with CHDC. The memorandum of understanding with the town didn't mention this, but the funding committee report that the town appointed did mention this. So it's always been out there, but it wasn't really called out, and it wasn't defined, to your point, Peter, in terms of what exactly does that look like? What does the TIF schedule look like, and what are the actual numbers and all of that? But the net $75,000 has always been part of the budget that has been presented and reviewed, perhaps. I don't know that anyone really zeroed in on this particular item, though. And I think Walter assumed that he was going to do a pilot, payment in lieu. And
Yeah.
many towns do pilots for these situations. But the Concord assessor doesn't feel that that's a acceptable or legal or whatever, method for property taxes. So then it was really into the TIF. This was the only way that a tax arrangement could be made. But Sudbury just did a project very similar, tax credits, and just had a negotiated, pilot agreement with the developer for something that was really quite less than this. So, there's just there's no sort of precedent you know, every town's like their own way of what they,
Yeah.
how they. But that doesn't even matter really. So, because this is what the assessor wants at Concord, and this is where it is, and this is, you know, and how it had to be to come up with this number. The 15 years is important because the tax credit subsidy is 10 years, and then the compliance period is 5 years after that. So the tax credit investor is investing for a 15-year period, and that's the regulated period per the IRS statute and all of that. So I know that there, you know, some proposals, discussion, you know, thoughts about reducing that TIF to 10 years, but that would not be acceptable from the tax investor's point of view, and they wouldn't do the project. And if the tax credit investor doesn't do the project, I don't know that anyone does the project, right? Like they're really important. So-
Plus, I think Walter's initial ask was to have it over 20 years. And then once it was maybe a little more formal, it was 17, and now he's down to 15. So there has been movement on his part for sure. And this
Yeah.
is really maxed out as far as he and the investors are concerned.
Right. And it dovetails with the way the program works. The program's a 15-year program. And when you see the like the regulatory agreements and framework, it's all going to be a 15-year compliance period. And then there's continued affordability after that, but the IRS tax credit portion of the program will move into a general operating mode out of the compliance period, right? So some of that was always known, but like, did anyone ever talk about it? Like they were just trying to get funded by the state. They were trying to see if it would get the development costs for so many years. The money was all about the development cost. So the operating and this was just really seen as a detail to be worked out later. And here we are later.
That's why we're in the situation that we're in, is because everything else always came ahead of this, and no one thought way back, that we should have a discussion about the TIF only because the project started and stopped, the project needed funding, the town needed to vote, everybody needed to mobilize. It fell through the cracks. I don't think anybody thought it was going to be that important on a property that generates no revenue, that people would be upset that we're going to get less revenue than we should be getting on a property that generates no revenue. So kind of that's where we are is, yeah, I mean, it came up. It's not Walter's fault. We've already had this discussion, but we're at the end and this is where we're at.
So at the end of the day, we started out saying the town was going to get 75,000 and we're still going to get 75,000.
Yeah.
I think that's the point we need to make.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yep.
And the CHDC,
There was no sleight of hand. There wasn't anybody saying, don't bring it up because we'll fudge it through later. It just never came up. 'Cause there always weren't
Exactly.
to do with.
When everybody's focused on getting the low income tax credits, you don't think about a couple of steps down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, it took us, over 4 years to get town meeting approval for $2 million from the town. It took at least that long for the state to come through with north of $11 million. And so, in scale and by comparison, negotiating a reduction, like you said, Jerry, in a tax revenue that anything above zero is in the black, I think it just was not on the list of most important to do things until now.
so I was looking, this is the 7th time this project has gone to town meeting, by the way. Yeah.
You know what they say, 7th time's a charm.
So, and I assume it's the last. You never know, but yeah. So, yeah. So I think that's a good discussion. Hopefully, that's a good summary. Kind of. How does that sound? What do you think, Doug?
I think it sounds fine. I think Peter's point is well made that it's still generating 75,000 and I would maybe not say as an aside, that's the best we can do.
Mhm.
That's good because a few other things came up, I think, if we were going to talk on Monday night. I didn't realize, Liz, there was a project in Acton that didn't get as much support. So therefore they threw the support to us because we had way more support. It's a good talking point.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
you know, between that.
I mean, there
between
could be
what-
more to it for the project in Acton, but certainly Acton has gone back, the developers asked the town to put in some more money, and the town's come up with additional funds.
No, I think we have enough talking points for Monday night.
75,000 then, it's 75,000 now, and anything greater than 0 is a plus to the town.
Fantastic math.
Okay, I will, why don't I make an inquiry to Mike Lee and copy you? Saying that the CHDC would like to make some comments directly after he makes his presentation.
Okay,
So that then when it's opened up, then all the context is out there. And then it can be a
Right.
more responsive thing if need be, or whatever happens after that. So you don't have to
Sounds
line
good.
up the mic or something, however they're going to do this.
So, Liz, quick question.
Yep.
You said we have somebody from the general public who's looking in, correct?
Carlin, hi Carlin.
Is that the woman from the League of Women Voters?
Yep, there she is.
Hi, folks.
I'd like to
do you
see
want to take
what,
down the agenda, Liz, just so we can see each other?
Oh yeah, I took it down for me, but I didn't realize that you didn't get it taken down. Okay, yep. Stuff, yeah, we can do that. Yep, there we go.
Thanks.
so I know we weren't at the meeting that you, Carlin, had about the TIF. Do you have any questions? Would you like us to answer anything particular so that the information is coming directly from us and not from other sources?
I like that. Thank you very much. Carlin Reed, 83 Woods End. I have two questions for you. One is, they both involve Junction Village. One is about the ground lease. The other is about Grantham's operations in Marlborough and Belchertown. The ground lease, what term is the ground lease for, and what happens after that lease term expires? Is it renewed, or what's the process? That's the first question.
I think we'll go to our legal department, which is Lee.
Hi, Lee.
Well, hi. The ground lease hasn't been finalized yet, so I think that's maybe perhaps a question that we can't answer with certainty this evening. But you know, assuming that the TIF passes, that will be dealt with. Liz, do you recall off the top of your head? I haven't looked at it in a number of months.
No, but we know that the land is restricted for housing, and I know that the town will have, for its $2 million, will have a perpetual affordable housing restriction on the land. So,
As well as an open space conservation
right, I'm just
restriction.
talking about even the residential portion that is under the ground lease. So, yeah, I don't really know like exactly what those terms are going to be, but it will be, it's not like, you know, at a certain point, it can become like a market rate development or property. So, yeah.
Okay, so the term has not yet been defined for the ground lease at this point,
I
right?
think we have
I'm going to see if I can find it.
We have a draft that we just don't have right here. But Lee is, you know, clicking away on his computer. So maybe he's
I appreciate
looking at
that. If there's
Sure.
just even in the draft format, I understand that it's subject to change, which makes sense.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Did you want to go on to your other question while Lee
Yes,
is looking?
please. Okay. I was doing a bit of research into the Grantham Group, and they have 83 units in Marlborough and an 83 unit in Belchertown. Both of those units have, at least when they were approved, guaranteed at 40 jobs. the unit in Concord is guaranteed for 30 permanent positions. Why the difference? Even though they have the same number of units.
Good question. I don't think we're Walter and we can,
Okay,
give you that answer if that's his operation. So,
okay. I didn't know if you folks had talked about that or not.
I don't really know if that's about the exact numbers, but I know that when we talked about the TIF, he felt that he could, that there would be no danger in committing to the 30, but that it would probably be more, but he wasn't going to commit to more jobs than that. So I don't really know where the, are these 40 jobs, are they in a TIF agreement with those towns?
And they're recorded in the annual reports that are filed with the planning board.
We'll find out. Yeah, I'll
I
pass
was
that
just-
along. Yeah.
And that actually kind of concerned me because you've got more staffers per unit in Marlborough and Belchertown than in Concord, at least as a guaranteed minimum. And I didn't know if there was a reason for the difference, if it was a savings effort or if there's something else going on. That was just something I noticed, those two.
Thank you.
Sure.
get that answer and get it to you.
Did I stall long enough, Lee, for you?
Nope.
Okay, I can come up with another one. No, I can't, sorry. But I'm interested in the Acton application more, and that's really for Liz. Is this the one that's on the Acton, Sudbury, Maynard line that like a 250 some unit near?
No, that's the Powder Mill Apartments. So Acton approved that 40B, and we'll get Acton over the 10%. So they're just doing the happy dance right now. So they've been working at that 10% for a long time.
So the Acton
No,
TIF
this is a project that's not, that's going for a low-income housing tax credit, which are usually not that size. And it's, what's it called? It's right by the old Kmart. It's right in that area, you know, like
Okay.
that, you know.
Yep, I know where that is.
Yep, and
It's off of Route 27.
yeah, so this was the second year for the developer to go in for tax credits for that project. So it wasn't the third year. I mean, we knew that this was the last year for Grantham. So it was a year, you know, they had another year there. And this, the Concord, the proximity to their Concord investment from DHCD, you know, like, I don't think that's in writing. Let me just put it that way from DHCD. Like that would be, you know, phone calls, like they're not going to put something like that, you know, in writing. Yeah. But
I did think of one more question because I can see Lee is still busily doing his thing. Once Junction Village is built, am I correct in understanding that CHGC will have the exclusive responsibility for compliance, monitoring it and making sure that it has it? No.
No.
Well, who is responsible?
I'm shaking my head because that's really like.
Well, no, I was on the CHA meeting today, Concord Housing Authority, and they said they don't have any responsibility for compliance for
With
Junction
Junction
Village. They
Village?
said that, yeah, for Junction Village, they said, no, that's CHDC stuff. So,
No, well, CHCC owns the land, but no, DHCD hires someone, and it's an IRS regulation. So Spectrum.
Monitoring agent.
Yeah, monitoring. Spectrum monitors all the low-income housing tax credit projects for the IRS and for the DHCD. So the town would be responsible for monitoring the units that are at that moderate income, the 150% AMI units. So that would probably be a town responsibility that we could sort of talk about that. I think it's really town, not CHDC. I think the regulatory agreement for those units will be with the town, but we'll work out all those details, I think, towards the closing.
so that would probably be the planning department. When you say the town, I think of Marsha Rasmussen and the planning department, of course.
I think we'd have to work through that.
You don't know yet. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
I kind of feel like I'm going to do the work, like who I'm going to do the work for. I'm not really sure, but I feel comfortable that I'm going to end up doing that work for the town as a, you know, as an assistant to the CHCC, the planning department, and the town.
that makes
The
sense.
town is the responsible for other monitoring agents, and it's really written in as just the town in the regulatory agreements. They're not you know, they don't say the planning department. they really say the town. And statutorily, the town is represented as the chief executive officer. So, presumably it's really the chair of the select board who's really responsible. But in practical terms, we do that town level monitoring, like the LIP program, the town is the monitor for. We do that for Marcia, who submits the information to the regulatory agencies. It's kind of, more informally delegated from the town perspective.
Okay, thank you very much, Liz. Appreciate that. I have nothing else.
Is there anything else that you think that the League of Women Voters would like to hear from us, whether Lee and I have an opportunity to speak to your group again, since we haven't been there? Have you taken a position? When will you take a position if you haven't?
I can tell you something about that. Diane Proctor is in charge of the town government committee, and she's the one who is guiding the discussions. I would recommend that you contact her about it. I can give you offline the information on how to reach her. And she would be the one who would be probably best positioned to decide about how to use the information and what kind of information is still needed. The league has not yet taken a position, and by the league, I mean the league board has not yet taken a position on Article 16, but it is up for discussion.
Is there
So,
a
talk to
particular
Diane.
meeting or time frame where that position would be taken?
Let's say the heavy discussion will be Tuesday at 2:00. So sooner is better than later, but I don't think, I'm sure that a vote will not be taken at that time because that's a committee level. It still has to go to the board level. And I don't know when the board meeting is yet. They haven't said it yet. But it will probably be before September 1. That's my guess. Might be September 2. I don't know. We do have a board meeting on the 2nd. So I don't know when the league's going to take a position on it.
So Dory had let me know that that Diane had been trying to get in touch with Jerry and Lee to meet, but Jerry and Lee didn't, they must not have connected because they didn't know that. So I went, I don't have Diane's email or phone. So I sent a note to Dory saying, hey, Jerry and Lee would be glad to help and all that if that's useful, but I hadn't heard back from her yet. So
I can give you Diane's contact information offline.
perfect, thank you.
Is Dory a member of the League of Women Voters in a capacity?
Is Dory is? Yes, she is.
And what's her capacity at the league? Is she just a member or is she on the board?
She's not on the board now. She was on the board. She's a member of the Affordable Housing Subcommittee. And I think that's the capacity that she's working in, and also on her own private, her own personal views as well.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to get from us that we can help you with?
Lee, did you figure out a term?
I'm at my work computer. I think it's on my home
Okay.
computer, so I can't pull it up, but
That's fine.
I'll try to
Cool.
get, it's in draft anyway, so it wouldn't be a
And that's
formal
the
answer.
Okay, that's it for me. Thank you very much, Liz. Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Jerry. Thank
You're
you,
welcome.
committee members. Appreciate
I found the ground lease. So let me just see if I can do this. I didn't want to.
it. Okay, I'm back. I'm listening.
Okay, let's see. Uh, 85 years? But then it doesn't really say level. I think it's going to take a little bit more to find out like what happens after that and what's the recurring. Yeah, because the lease, it talks all about the pilot, right? As a whole section of real estate taxes, right? So I think that there's some things that need to get updated for sure.
Okay, thanks. Appreciate that.
Right.
I think I just wanted to say in general, there's once this gets approved, if I can use that language, right? That aside from the ground lease, which is really important, that we talked about this a little bit last time, but there is the open space work and like carving up the parcel between the ground lease and putting the restriction on the open space. There's a lot of work for, remember that there's like $485,000 of home funds in the project that are the local home funds, home consortium funds. There's a lot of work, environmental work to get those committed. And, you know, this parcel has might have some environmental things that need to get worked through from the HUD perspective. So there's just a lot of work to finish, you know, once all these approvals are done. And the ground lease is just one piece of many important tasks ahead.
That's good. Ready to move on, or we have more on the TIF? Any TIF questions from anybody?
I guess I just encourage everyone to try to watch the public hearing if you're able to.
All right. What's next, Liz? The agenda's not on my screen anymore.
So Jim was going to talk about his and recap his meeting on the 229 Main Street. I think you're on mute.
Oh, shoot.
No,
Jim,
Jim, you're on mute.
Lost
Mute.
Oh my God, I'm going, oh, there I am. Jim.
I got it. I don't know. Had been unmuted, it muted. I don't know what happened. Sorry about that. Anyway, so this is the meeting that was the 7th of August I'll talk about. I've lost someone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
yes.
Okay, all right. So basically, one of the first thing that was going to, a fair amount of time was spent trying to analyze the information that was obtained from the citizens that sent in what it was, how they viewed what should be done with the 229 property. And a lot of work has gone into it, and there's still some more work to come to some idea of what should be done. The data, this is the kind of stuff that, I don't know if you can see this or not, of different questions that were asked and what the response answers were. And the whole idea is that I think we have to do a little bit more before we can come to a conclusion as to what some of the basic ideas are that the town wants or that the town people want. And that's important really for a number of reasons, not the least of which is there has to be a solid presentation in December to the town about what we think should be done. The second thing was that Carl Seldman and Kate, I can't pronounce her name correctly, Zazari, spent time going through the cleanup, the super fund cleanups to try and find out what I've spent time to try and find out, how many organizations were successful in getting property cleaned up and having houses built. They got through quite a few more than I did, I think over 100. It's not clear where they stand, and they're working on that. So that I have information which I'm sending to them to help out. The third thing, which was actually kind of really interesting, is a proposal by Mr. Brian Osborough to recommend that a site that the 2229 would be a good location for what he calls Concord Cloud and Concord Institute. He is a town resident, an entrepreneur, describes himself as an entrepreneur. I don't know him, so I presume that's true. And the founder of Earth Watch Institute. And his interests are to find ways to get companies to establish equipment in that location for the kinds of stuff we're familiar with, data storage and computer sacrifices. Some of these would be owned and operated by companies, but they would be paying fees in order to have access to it. And it would be similar in his mind to what he calls the Aspen Institute. I don't know what that is. I haven't been there. He believes that the concept would generate funds and new opportunities for the town, both in terms of new kind of more people that would come to town to work at a situation like that. And it really kind of sounds interesting. And there are people who will be looking into that. In particular, Paul Bowen, who knows this gentleman quite well, is going to look at that very carefully. It's a very interesting presentation. There are two limitations, however, not limitations, but two concerns. One of which is these pieces of equipment require a lot of electrical power. So that's one issue that has to be dealt with. And secondly, they would also require water to try and control the temperature of some of the equipment as it operates. So that something may turn into be a possible problem. But at this moment, it's kind of interesting to think about it. This falls in line with our meeting last week, well, not last week, excuse me, the last meeting we had, in which it was pointed out by several people, Jerry and Peter Lowett, that we really want to use 2229 as a situation in which you can gather funds from the facility and which could be used for building affordable housing elsewhere in the town, but not have to deal with the question whether you can actually do that with facilities that would be in an area that was cleaned up from what had been there, which would be depleted uranium. So this is kind of interesting. It represents a new taste as far as I can see as to what one might imagine, but it fits in with what people are concerned about in terms of, can you really build affordable housing at 2229? That's still up in the air. I mentioned at the meeting about the fact that several members of CHDC at our meeting raised the question again about viability of trying to construct affordable housing at the site. Because of what's been going on, there really was no reaction. We're still in the process of trying to understand what it is that should be done at that property, and has to be done pretty soon. So I thought maybe I get some feedback or some questions, nothing. So that basically, the other thing I should mention, that is there'll be a guest at the next meeting, which is the 4th of September. Peter Lowett is going to provide a discussion of the cleanups that took place at Fort Devens. I remember Fort Devens since I lived in Harvard. I used to go over there and sneak to cut down rocks, not rocks, cut down wood to operate in the fireplace. But I've kind of stopped that. I don't do that any longer. I don't live there. My son does. He still lives in the house. But so I remember Fort Devens. That will be interesting. So the other thing I should mention, because the December 20th report is really very important, the group is trying to figure out really what can be done and what will be pushed back by various members of the town. And there's still work to be done there. I have not spent enough time over the last several days looking at the data that I mentioned, this kind of stuff. But it's there, and it requires more attention. Finally, I should say, I recall not too long ago that Barbara Morris predicted that it would take 10 years to actually plan, remediate, and develop the site. And it's beginning to look that way. There is a time chain that was worked up several months ago, and it looks as if it would be close to 2026. The site would be sufficiently developed that we can see where things will go. But that remains, I still have to look into that. I guess the main point I want to make is there's just a lot of time going over the information that was obtained from the request of the members of the town. And then the next thing is, it really is worth looking into the thought provided by Brian Rosenberg. That might really turn out to be quite interesting. It strikes me as very interesting because, well, I'm kind of interested in that stuff anyway. So that's as much as I can say.
Can I ask Jim, thank you for that update. It's really good. How, in terms of the survey responses, what did people say about housing? What was the general?
Well, it was average on yes side. I probably won't be able to get, there was no big pushback on housing on a number. There were some people that said you should never do that. Don't do that. There were also people who said, don't do anything with 2229. That would be a nice place to have it, just let it alone. On every question that comes up, there's one or two people will say, you should let that alone. Don't touch it. same thing applied to housing. Let it alone, don't do it. And then there were a few people raised the question, you should never do that. There wasn't an overwhelming process of saying, yes, we absolutely have to have it, or no, no good. Now, I should remember where that stands. And I'm afraid I don't have it at my hands. I should have. I thought I had it, but it's escaped me. I apologize. But basically, there was not an overwhelming push against housing. Let's put it that way. Nor was there an overwhelming push for yes housing. It's kind of up and down, close to 50-50, 40-60.
So Peter, you're going to go and present to the group next time?
Yes, I am. It's something Lee could do because he studied all of those legal agreements about earth removal and unexploded ordnance and the like, but I'll share.
Can you let us know when that is?
Yeah, it's September 4th, 8 a.m.
I think I said that, yeah. That would be.
Is that a Zoom?
That would be a Zoom.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all Zoomed.
Well, maybe we could circulate an invite to our group, and if anyone wants to join.
Be nice.
Just as an aside, Lee
course.
will get a kick out of this. Our latest issue out at Devon's is people are taking metal detectors and trolling in the Oxbow in the Nashua River, and they're bringing up unexploded ordnance. And once the ordnance gets out of the water, it becomes even more unstable than it was before. And so we've actually had to go to the governor's office today to ask for an executive order to keep people from using the metal detectors and strolling through the Nashua River within Devon's.
I remember when people were shooting guns out there and tanks coming down the street. Yes, I can recall that.
Yeah, no tanks, but we're still shooting guns.
Oh, that used to scare me a little bit.
Regulate common sense. All right, anything else so we can move on? Anybody? Liz, what's next?
Can I just say something to answer the question? Can I just, basically there was a question, 30% people said yes, housing should be considered at the site. No, 35%, 30% said no. So it's kind of a balance. There's just no strong force for housing or against housing. That's the conclusion that I came to.
Jim, I have a question. In the proposal you mentioned from Brian, you said there might be a lot of machinery there. I didn't understand that.
Oh, I may have probably used the wrong word. If you're going to have some system in which there's a lot of computation taking place,
Oh, I see.
that's equipment, that's computation, which requires electricity and, and also coolant facilities.
Right.
Otherwise it burns
Okay.
up and it doesn't work.
Thanks.
I mean, that's what I meant. That's what I meant. And that is something that I don't know how serious that is at the moment. But there was someone raised the question, will there be enough electricity to support that kind of an activity? And how would one increase the amount? Just something to think about. But it's still very interesting, I thought.
Okay, thanks.
Great. Anything else? We can get on to the next item. Liz, what do we have?
Yep, we have the small grant application. So every year we update the small grant application with the new income limits. And they came out in April, so it took a little time to get to that. And when we update them, so there's two parts of the eligibility. One is that you're under a certain income, and one that your house is assessed below the median, which is now like some huge. What is the number now? I'm sorry. Where is it? It is, the meeting house in Concord is $925,000. Look at that. It's kind of amazing. That's the median value. So anyway, updating those numbers, Jerry had the thought that we should have a discussion on whether the CHCC would want to discuss the grant amount and reduce it. I think was really the thing. I don't think it was a discussion to increase it. I don't really know, but the grant amount, as you know, is a $5,000 grant amount, and there's a $10,000 lifetime. So you can basically apply twice. Many people are repeat requesters at this point. And I think it really came from the fact that there's no source of funds for this program. Certainly the Middlesex Savings Bank $20,000 gift is a plus, but I think the budget is, what is it? I should know that. $25,000, $30,000. Yikes. What is it? Something. I'll get that while we talk. And you know, this would be a time to bring it down. The budget is $30,000. Or just keep it there and then see how things go in the future. You know, there's some out there, right? So it's not CPA eligible. So that's one thing. So you can't get CPA funds for the program. And there is the housing trust that's getting to be established, right? And the housing trust looks like it's going to be funded with that free cash. You know, maybe that free cash, there could be a request for this program, but maybe some thought that money is not, as it was a condition to town meeting, is it eligible, is it not eligible, public funds, free cash, there's some other regulations there, so it's not like a done, you know, I don't really know. So it would be a cautious move to reduce the grant to preserve the, whatever we said, $95,000 that the CHCC has. CHCC takes about $10,000 a year to run between the insurance and the CPA and the bookkeeper and like all of that. And we'll continue to do that. So the Grantham lease, now that the Grantham, like when the Grantham lease was $35,000, you know, we said that that was going to be fund the small grant program plus the operations, the ongoing operations. So that was, you know, kind of keep things afloat. But with that lease now down to $10,000, it puts really a lot of pressure on that program. So those are a lot of uncertainty in the future, but it was worth, before publishing the new income limits on this application, it would be a time that the group could make this change. There's nothing, you know, it's really your program. There's no requirement or regulation, or you don't have to ask any permissions from anyone. You could decide tonight to change your program and it would just change. So I think that's the background for the agenda item. You certainly can add more if you have questions about anything I said or more detail.
So I guess I brought it up, as you said, just because we don't have infinite amount of money. I don't know whether anybody feels this is the time to make a change or let it ride for another year and see what the landscape looks like out there in a year from now. But opportunity to think about it now.
I'd suggest we do a little bit of both. We reduce the amount in our budget for each year to $20,000 with a $4,000 cap, so that we can service 5 people, and revisit it again next year if we've got a better sense of additional income where we can raise it back to its prior glory.
It used to be.
Is that a motion?
2,500. I think
Yes.
it started as 2,500. Is that right, Jerry? Do you remember?
I'm
And
sorry.
it's I think it started the program at 2,500
How long ago?
long ago. Like probably 3 years ago, something like that.
4 years ago we made the change, or 4 years when we enacted the program?
Made the change in the funding amount.
I can't remember exactly how far back it was, but I do remember it.
I can definitely find that out. That's the one great thing about Zoom, is that you can look up all this stuff right here and you don't even know I'm looking it up. Unless my eyes are really
I can see where your eyes are looking.
darting around, right? They're all like looking at like this. Well, I could say in 2016, it was still 5. So I don't know. Yeah, must have been before that. I
So
think
we-
I only go back one more year.
So we have a
Yeah.
motion before us, Peter, is that
Sorry.
what you're thinking?
Yeah,
Second.
Anybody in favor?
So it's to reduce the budget. Oh, sorry.
We have to do we have to roll call vote on things or?
Yeah,
do
you
we-
do. Yeah.
Okay,
Peter, I.
Dog eye.
Okay,
Lee,
So that's James, I, Lee, I.
Jerry, aye.
yes.
Yeah, the eyeballs have it.
So
And
just
that's
for
the-
Liz, that was 20,000 a year with a maximum of 4,000 per unit.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. And I can tell you that the next grant cycle is January. So there'll be some time. So, great.
Thanks. Do we have any outstanding small grant discussions at all, or we pretty much got past that last round? I don't think there was. I think we covered
Right,
everything.
there was the air
There was
conditioner.
something
that
about the
was-
warranty, wasn't there?
Yes,
It was-
yeah, that was not too long ago.
Yep, that's all been closed out. There is $5,000 of outstanding that's been granted, not invoiced. There's the person who had the kitchen that was under repair, and they're still getting estimates. So, and then there's someone else who's coming in, but they're having a problem getting estimates. So, there'll be applications for January.
Sounds good. Thank you. Anything else? I can't see the agenda.
Let me look at the agenda. I think that, where are we here? I think that was it, right? Public comment.
Any public?
Okay. Carlin, do you have anything else?
I think I've used up my quotient of questions. Thank you very much.
We can grant you another one if you have it.
I'll save it for next time.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything or motion to close?
So moved.
Motion to close.
Second,
Roll call vote or just,
Smith, I.
Close.
Dog eye.
Motion that needs no second.
all right.
So Jerry, how's the sale of your house going?
It is going. I'm
Is it?
going.
Yeah.
Always going.
Going, okay. I drive by so often and I just see just listed. I'm like, no, it's not just listed. I keep thinking like, maybe it's, it's gonna change up,
Never know.
Never know. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Boy. Wow, that's a big deal.
It is.
Oh, gosh.
Leaving town after 34 years.
Really? Oh, wow.
Where are you going?
Lake Webster.
Right.
Which is where?
Webster.
Oh. Okay, all right, we got it. Huh.
Last town in Connecticut before you get to, last town in Massachusetts before you get to Connecticut on the way to Foxwoods. In case you're going to Foxwoods.
Right, like on 395, right? Maybe?
Yep.
Yeah. It's nice, it's pretty over there.
God,
Bad cell service. How's your cell service over there?
that's almost a shock.
Better than it is in some spots in Concord, I got to tell you.
Oh, good, yeah.
All right, folks.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
You.
You will.
Bye.